So flip on over to Luke 14. I want to start us off with a passage, a scripture that, if you really think about it, can confuse a lot of us or make us feel annoyed or frustrated or kind of wondering how do I live this out? And so that passage, it's actually a whole paragraph, but we're just going to read the ending line in verse 33. So Luke 14:33. It says, "Those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciple." It's a difficult teaching by Jesus. Yeah. And after you start thinking about it, I remember reading this to a young college guy who just had a lot of dreams for financial success. And I was like, all right, how are you going to reconcile this verse to your dreams? How can you even right now reconcile all the things you own to what this verse says? He ended up coming up with the same conclusion through other scriptures and kind of thinking through it that I had come up with and been taught. And that's really the concept of stewardship. Yeah. So flip on over to Matthew 25. We're going to read this parable that really gives us an outlook on really the fact that we are stewards. And so Matthew 25, verse 14 through 30. And the great thing about this concept of stewardship, and really what we're trying to do in all 3 weeks, is that we're trying to hit and talk not just to the people who are starting to get to the point of investing, or not just to the people who are trying to work out of debt, but we're trying to really cover it all. Make sure we're all, and the concept of stewardship hits all of us. Yeah. So here in verse 14, it says, "Again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags went at once and put the money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned to settle accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you have entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Come and share your master's happiness.' The man with 2 bags of gold also came. 'Master,' he said, 'you have entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness.' The man who had received 1 bag of gold came to his master. He said, 'I knew you are a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you.' His master replied, 'You wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I would harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have at least received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw those worthless servants outside into the darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth." And here at the end, we see that it gets, again, kind of a hard teaching. But if we just look at this very simply, who is the master? It's God. And we are the servants. Yeah. Whose wealth is it? It's the master's.
Yeah.
And we are entrusted with it.
Yeah.
Now, here this parable that says bags of gold. And so it's easy just to jump to money and finances. But in all reality, this talks more than just money, but really about even responsibilities that we've been entrusted with. You know, whether it's money or gifts or talents, family, I think about time or your job. These are things that have been entrusted to you by God. And I think the biggest takeaway when I look at the concept of stewardship within this parable, within other parables, is the simple idea that we are not the owners. Everything we have belongs to God. He has given it to us. We are the stewards, the managers of God's possessions, and we need to manage it in His best interest. I'll close out my portion with this verse and then one more line. In 1 Peter 4, verse 10, it says, "Each of you should use whatever you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." And I love that it says in its various forms, because our jobs are a gift of grace given to us by God. Our families, everything that we have is a gift of grace. And one thing that we have to work on is, I'm taking this from a book I have, transferring the title deed to God. Because I think so often we feel like the owners. And that's what we have to do. And that will play into how we decide to, for what we're talking about these 3 weeks, how we deal with our finances. That if we put God as the owner and we're just the stewards, the managers, then we have to manage with His best interests. Bruce, you want to add on?
Come on, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. Dug into stewardship a little bit. Biblical stewardship, I think really what biblical stewardship means is everything we have and everything we are is a gift from God. And that being grateful and generous with those gifts is our stewardship. And, I believe, I know Rachel shares this too, that we are here because, in Flagstaff, because of our stewardship. We didn't, God blessed our stewardship and giving is what I'm trying to say. We didn't take any money from anybody to move up here. We did it on our own. We saved it up and being giving the whole time. We didn't hold back or anything. We just laid it all out there. And, I haven't always thought of my money in a stewardship way. And Rachel's been great at keeping me in line. Like, okay, here we go. You're being going too far here, whatever. But she's been good at keeping me in a good spot. And so, in Phoenix, every Christmas, Rachel would say, okay, let's help out people in need in the church. So just on our own, we wouldn't tell anybody, we would give money or whatever to the single moms or the elderly widows or whatever, and that just helped their hearts. So. And I think other things that I struggle with sometimes is like tipping. We went to a restaurant in Gilbert last night and we paid $5 for a glass of lemonade. I had a hard time with that. That's a lot of money. So I skimmed back on the tip, and that wasn't right. So Rachel helped me get in line there. Probably still didn't give enough, but I gave a little more. So anyway, the other things we've done is, we've loaned our trailer out for Isaac to live in, and it was awesome last year. The main reason we bought our house here, one of the things we looked for was having a house we could set up to have people over. We wanted to set that up so we could have people in the house for God, for teaching, for whatever. We had a campus in the garage last year and just try to use it just for any way we could. And I think God really blesses those things, really blessed that in our heart. And He just paved the way for us to get a house here. Kind of, Marco's still going up, but we were able to get this house way a lot less than it's selling for now. And He blessed us on the other end by being able to sell our house down there for more than we expected. And things just came in line for us. And I have no other explanation other than God just blessed us. So, the downside for me is I think I can sometimes get attached to my money and think, okay, this is going to carry me through. And I got to do a hard check there and then get a feeling, no, God's going to carry me through. And the stock market is in the tank now, so we're taking a hit. And it's a little nerve-wracking, but anyway, so it's forcing me, okay, God's going to take care of this. So anyway, those are my thoughts on stewardship.
Amen.
Nice. So if you go on the first page, I just want to walk through kind of the outline. I feel like biblical stewardship is kind of the overall concept that we're going to be talking about throughout all of this, throughout these next 3 Wednesdays. And if you look, next week we're going to, Bruce will lead us through a thought on Matthew 6. And the following week we'll have a spiritual message on just hopefully inspiring us how much we can do for God. And so, but real quick, I do want to go through, we're going to dig into our 2 topics tonight. But obviously we dig into some key points and practicals each week. So we've got living below your means, budgeting tonight, and also giving to God. Next week we'll talk about debt, saving, and that you got to save an emergency fund first. That's vital. We threw in some proverbs for each of these to kind of get us started, to get you started. Topic number 3 next week is insuring, which is not something you always think about when you think about finances. But I really love this proverb here, 27:12. I guess I could save it for next week, but it says, the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. I think nowadays that's a lot having to do with insurance and having good insurance. And then the final week we'll talk about extra giving, retirement, investing, and we'll also talk about lending if you're ever in a position to do that. So let's dig into topic number 1, living below your means. I have, I think Proverb 24 listed on that front page, but I actually want to start in Proverb 27, verse 23. It says, be sure to know the conditions of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for our generations. And again, these proverbs were written a long time ago, and so we have to kind of transition them into 2022. And I think the theme of this is not paying attention is not the way to go. Just saying, swipe, swipe. Just saying, I got paid yesterday. Just saying, whatever you're saying when you're clicking things online, enter the cart. That's not necessarily the way to go if you want to be a good steward of the things God has given you. And thus, this is where the idea of budgeting comes in. This is where the idea of living below your means. And therefore, Proverbs 24, verse 27, it's on that front sheet. It says, prepare your work outside, get everything ready for yourself in the field, and after that, build your house. And I think when it comes to budgeting, I really like what this is saying here. You could definitely apply this to work first, then, do your side stuff. But when I think about budgeting, I think this proverb just applies simply, budget the things that you have to budget first. Then do what you want. Build your house, build your things later. Or if there's excess, or when the time comes. So to live below your means, right, just since it means to make more money than you spend. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can either make more money if you're already spending more than you're making, or you can decrease your expenses. Right, 2 easy fixes. But to get into the topic of budgeting, real quick, we want to, throughout all of these classes, give you guys tools, give you guys practical things to help you. And so what I've done is I typed up from the app that I use, Abby's and I's budget template. And so that's what you guys have as well. And I'm gonna kind of walk you through it real quick, hopefully. But I think, this is not the budget I used when I was in college, which I think it's very tempting for me to just want to keep that budget of, I spend this much, I have that much. And that was it. As long as my bank account didn't go in the red, I was on budget. This is definitely much more thorough. And it's definitely, I think it's a way to do really well in being a good steward. So in this budget, there are 3 sections I've got, and it's all done monthly. That's how we do it. If you get paid every other week, you have to do some adjusting. If you need help with that, Bruce or I could help you out with that. But the first one is monthly income. Pretty simple. Abby and I have, for lack of better terms, 3 income sources. Our salary, it's called a personal ministry expense, which allows us to get food or serve other people when needed, pays for gas at times. And then Destiny pays rent. So that's our rent. But that's our take home pay, right? Simple enough. Monthly budget is the next category, but I'm going to skip that. I want to go down to a monthly, or not a monthly tracker, the money tracker on the next page. It's at the bottom. I think this is very helpful to do if you haven't done this, or if you don't do this regularly. This can be super helpful. Just knowing where your money is actually located, super helpful. You think if you were, actually, in charge of somebody else's money, as in being a steward, they would want you to know where the money is. And so this is how, you literally have all of our accounts right here. So if you ever want to know how many accounts we have or things like that, you have it all. And so, checking, savings, our credit cards, STS is our church's accountant. We have money in Venmo, cash. We have to put gift cards because we're really bad at spending gift cards.
Yes.
So we put it in there. Then we have taxable investments. And I broke this into 2 sections. A liquid accounts, which just means these are things if we needed cash, this is where we can get cash from. It might take us a few days to get cash out of some of them. But compared to the non-liquid accounts of retirement or the house, we can't get that stuff out unless we wanted to pay an extra 15%. So I just wanted to share that. Obviously, if you look at the 2 credit card things, they have parentheses around it, meaning more than likely they will be negative. And so, do you want to add anything before I dig into how I organize a budget?
I have some stuff on the big below means if you want to share that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
And then we'll dig into the monthly budget portion.
Yeah, I think living below your means, some things that we did. My first job, I was an accountant for 28 years, and I didn't have a high salary. So we didn't have a lot of extra money, although Rachel started a side business and went really well. in my second job, my salary like tripled. So we were really doing well, and I believe this has really got blessing us. There's a long story I can share with you if you want about how that job transition worked, and it was just amazing what God did. But so that's really a lot of stuff that helped us to be able to move too. But overall, we didn't spend, when we got this extra money, we didn't go buy a big house like all my friends were doing. We went, huge houses and buying new cars. We didn't do that stuff. We stayed in our same house. It was okay. We would have liked it done other things, but we mainly saved more and gave more at that time. So, and then, for years, we just bought used appliances. We bought used furniture, and Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and OfferUp were just what we used. And I got to know what stuff was worth, so I even bought stuff off Craigslist and resold it on Craigslist for like double the money. So just getting creative with things was the way we got by and got where extra saved more. We paid cash for all that stuff, and we used coupons and discounts. I think we only had cable TV for like 1 or 2 years. The rest is just Netflix and some streaming. Dining out, I always order water. I don't pay $5 for lemonade. That's my thing. You guys can do whatever you want with that. But one thing I did learn in budgeting, and this was, I'm an accountant, so we're all probably relate. We really fine tune, we really dig into things, we really go after it. And I think sometimes I took it too far with my budgeting to where it hurt my family. I was just Nazi-like with it sometimes. Just overboard. I use that's a better word. So it's hard on my family. I just learned that, man, this is something you really gotta, I recommend communicating. You guys are married. Don't let one spouse just go off and, do it all. So I learned that. And I think that's it.
Nice.
And so as we dig into a budget, again, I wanted to show you what Abby and I do, just, because if you haven't done this in a while, or maybe you just need to get back in the habit, having a template, having an example, hopefully can help. Now, this might be a little bit more of a confusing example, and I will say that anytime you make a new budget, anytime you adjust or have a life change, it does typically take 3 to 4 months to work through what is like a good budget. And so just as you're going through this, if month 1, your categories are all upside down, all right, don't throw it out the window quite yet. Just keep working on it. And so for our budget, as you can see, I've got the categories, but then I've got two columns budgeted, which is like how much I'm budgeting for the month. But technically, we're already, I have no idea what day it is. Is it the 11th?
No.
We're 11 days into the month. So that number isn't the same because we've spent some of that money. So that's what that other column is for. How much is left? I put our credit cards right up, and at the moment, Abby and I are debt free. Planning to stay that way. So we don't have anything in there, but I put that category in there if you wanted to. I split our expenses up through fixed expenses and fluid expenses. Now, technically, if you look, you're going to be like, your gas bill is not necessarily fixed. Maybe a better word is uncontrollable expenses and controllable expenses. I have no real control over how much they're going to charge me on a given month. But, obviously there's a little control, but you can't really do too much to it. Those are things you have to spend. Fluid expenses are the things that we have control over. And so that's definitely how I do it. The other reason I have two lines here, the budgeted and the available left, is many of these categories roll over for me, that they don't reset. For example, auto maintenance, home projects, special events, extra giving. If we don't spend that in that month, it builds up. Mainly because I only put in auto expenses half half of what it's worth to get an oil change each month. And therefore, every other month, one of our cars, or probably every third month, one of our cars can get an oil change. It builds up. Any questions with that? You go to page 2. Not all of our expenses are monthly. So I have a category of annual expenses. If you do any sort of reimbursements for work, that's what that next section is. Next month money, if you can get this into your budget, I highly recommend it. What this is for me is I take the 15th and the 31st, and that's the money I budget for the next month, those paychecks. So once that comes in, this is all on an app that I use, so it's a little different than doing it on paper. If you're interested in the app, just let me know. It is pricey, but it's worth it for me. And then I have our savings, large expenses. I do have our emergent. I put all of our cash in here, all of our liquid accounts into our budget, and it's all there under available expenses. That number should equal, if I were to sum it all up, the money tracker for the liquid accounts. If I'm at where I want to be with my emergency fund, I don't put anything else in the emergency fund, right? Simple things like that. I highly recommend a goal if you can, of doing $500 a month into a Roth per person, just because it's maybe the best investment you'll make.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But any questions when it comes to having a template like this for a budget? Again, my mind is maybe a little weirder than most when it comes to money. He's an accountant. I got my degree in math, finance, and statistics. So it's kind of, we're weird.
Yeah.
And so I will say there's so much freedom in doing this. I know budgets don't always feel freeing, but knowing where all my money is and being able to know what I can spend on things is really free. We're trying to book flights for a few things right now, and knowing that, hey, you know what? All right, let me look. I can afford this. It's really nice to know that. And if you really want to take a look at the software I use, it's called YNAB. YNAB. You need a budget, is what it's called. As I said, it is pricey. It's $100 a year. But if you're ever interested in it and need some coaching on how it works, let me know. So, you have anything else on?
Just a quickie one. The software we used was paper for our tracking. Actually, it was an envelope. We wrote down the categories of variable expenses, dining out, gas, and all
I'm a millennial.
And so we'd have our total we could spend, and I would write everything down. And at the end of the month, total it up, and if we were under the total of our budget, we had a little party. We went out to dinner and celebrated. It made it kind of fun. So that's just what worked for us for a while. It's an idea. It takes a little work, but it's worked for us.
I think you're up with topic 2.
So, giving to God, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some things I learned about giving to God, some things I did, as a young Christian, I went through a divorce, and that was hard. You guys know what divorces cost a lot of money. And not only attorney's fees and everything, but then my ex-wife got a bunch of credit cards and charged them up, so we had a huge debt all of a sudden. And the credit cards she put in my name, she actually signed my name to the credit card applications. And so I was in a lot of trouble. Because in Arizona, like Ken knows, community property, if your spouse goes out and buys a new car, you're both responsible to make payments. So anyway, I didn't want to, through the divorce, through all this debt, and I had a good job, but I just didn't know how I was going to make the payments. So I actually had bankruptcy papers filed with the court, and I said, okay, I'm not going to pay it. I got bankruptcy now, divorce. Okay, so this is a really hard time. But one thing, I continued to do was I continued to tithe and give to God because, I knew that's all I had, And so kind of at the last minute, I was able to get a second mortgage on the home I owned. And I could consolidate everything, and I was sweating. Got everything consolidated, got all the payments together, and did not have to file bankruptcy. And I was able to eventually settle out on all these debts through debt reduction, whatever. So God just bailed me out, basically. But I just made a point that I'm putting first when I give, and I really blessed that. So yeah, over the years we've been very blessed. We've been able to give back more to God and people, and we've seen God bless our finances and everything we've done. So anyway, you can't go wrong giving to God.
Sure.
Yeah.
On your sheet, Proverbs 3, 9 and 10, it says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. I'm sure many of us know and have thought through, the new covenant, you don't have to tithe. There is no command to give a tenth, which is true. And I think one thing that was so neat in listening to Dave's lesson on the Sermon on the Mount was the idea that the law was supposed to teach us to do better. Now, that wasn't necessarily the case, and the Israelites maybe didn't necessarily learn that. And that's why he's like, hey, it's not meaning just don't murder. It's supposed to teach you to be kind. It's supposed to teach you to be loving. And I think with this, a tithe, another book I have, it calls it the training wheels of giving. And I really love that concept. Right? Training wheels are supposed to teach you how to give, how to be generous. And I think if we take that idea, we can really apply it. And in week 3, when we talk about this, the concept of how much can we give, not to church, but how much can we give to people? It's going to be really amazing and really visionary for that. And so one thing we wanted to do with, giving you a budget template and talking about being good stewards is give you guys some homework. And that is, if you guys don't feel fired up and confident with your budget, is to this week create a new one. You guys can use my template. You guys can just reference it. You guys can scratch out the things that you don't use and apply the things you do to it. Cross off our names, put your own names. I will say what Bruce said. If you have a spouse, work on it together. At minimum, as Dave Ramsey says, I'm not the biggest fan of Dave, but one thing he says is one person brings the budget, and at minimum, no matter what, the other spouse has to make one correction to the budget. It could be $25 somewhere. They have to make, and that way it's at least somewhat together in doing it. So fill out all 3 sections: income, your monthly thing, and that money tracker. I think all 3 of those can help you to be a great steward of your finances. Close it out. Any questions when it comes to stewardship, when it comes to budgeting or giving to God, anything finances wise? You have an expert and a wannabe expert.
Over there too. Yeah, if you got any questions, just ask. We'll be happy to sit down over budget with you guys or whatever.
Any questions at the moment? No?
I have more of a statement.
Sure.
So I live pretty frugally and pretty cheaply, but I have a lot of student loans that I'm trying to pay off. A lot of student loans, and really to the point where I'm like, I just want to get rid of them completely. And so I feel really super fortunate and blessed to have Ken and Debbie's daughter and son-in-law. I met with them via Zoom a few months back, and they helped me make a budget, and kind of go over my finances. I'm moving and I'm cutting down on costs, in that way to kind of pay stuff off. So I just want to give some props to like your daughter and Nate for helping. Yeah, it was really wonderful for them to do that with me. I mean, to take time to meet with me. And, they didn't do it begrudgingly at all. They were super excited about it. They're like, hey, we're big nerds when it comes to this. We love, we love doing this.
envelopes.
Yeah.
Envelope method is.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that as like
Yeah.
encouragement, like that it was really empowering. I think Ryan is totally right, that it's very freeing
Yeah.
to actually have a budget and to live within your means and to, really be empowered
Yeah.
in that way. And I feel, and God's already blessed me, like it's been crazy, incredible since I started this process. Like he's already like provided certain things for me, financially to be able to pay off some of my loans, and it's been pretty incredible. I know he works with everybody in different ways, but this is just how it happened to work out for me, so I'm just grateful for that.
And if you're ever looking online or Instagram, YouTube on like things and it's giving percentages of what you should spend on maybe expenses or fun things or saving things, I will mention one thing, that we do live in a very expensive area.
Yes.
And therefore, your housing costs might not align with what they're suggesting that to be.
Yeah, good point.
Now, you can always maybe find cheaper housing, which is an option, but just take that into account. Don't get frustrated over the fact that we live in a very expensive housing area. Any other questions? Yeah.
I just also a comment. Yeah, I appreciate y'all doing this. I think moving from a, for lack of a better term, dirt cheap place of living to here has been very drastic, very eye-opening. I mean, we've done mild budgeting, but it's more like emergency type things. Everything else is just kind of like, you can barter your way down pretty much to anything. So yeah, I appreciate y'all doing this and definitely helping us get our minds on being stewards of what God's given us, and especially stewards in a place that almost feels like highway robbery sometimes, paying for stuff here. And so I'm like, this is good to get our minds on that. So I definitely appreciate that, and we will be probably sitting down with a number of you guys to talk and get your advice on things, so appreciate it.
Question?
So what about if you don't have a job? Because I am staying over the summer, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to work. I do have enough money in savings to feasibly pay for everything over the summer, but what are your thoughts on that?
Do you have a specific question?
What would you suggest? Would you say get a job or just budget wisely or what?
Budget wisely, yes. Thankfully, I know for me, my parents helped a little bit, and loans helped through college. Not saying to necessarily do that, but one way to look at things, if possible, and if in a financial spot, whether your family, school can be a job, and that's one way to look at it. And so maybe you're just on an extended vacation for the summer, but again, I think it depends on financially where you're at. I mean, if it can help cut down on future loans. I mean, I think you can ask anybody who has ended school with student loans, that it's a pain in the butt for future budgets. After your 18 or 24 months reprieve and
You're still getting charged interest for this.
oh no, you're still getting charged, but you don't have to pay them yet.
There's no demand to pay it, but
Yeah.
it's still worth it, for sure.
So, it's definitely a pain. So if that is the case, then I might suggest finding work. But not necessarily needed, especially if loans aren't a question.
You could have like a mini summer budget. I had to do that one summer where I worked all through school, saved up a little like nest egg for the summer, and then made a budget off of that as like my income. So my savings, I would say like, okay,
Yeah.
my income for the month of June, I would take a chunk of my savings and be like, that's what this is, and break it down. I'm sure they can help you with like a mini budget.
Any other questions? We got a couple more weeks of biblical finances. So hope you're excited. I'm trying not to like give away all my content for next week. I almost gave away one of my biggest pieces for next week. So, but I'll try to hold off. Yeah.
I'll share one thing actually worth thinking, and I'm sure I shouldn't say this. I know, sure, a lot of you folks are doing this, but with the price of gas going up, if you have opportunity in grocery shopping to have a credit card that earns you cash back for groceries or gas, use that. I got into that with airline miles and also hotels years ago, and I don't pay much, for, I obviously pay for groceries and gas, but I don't really pay much for travel at all. Don't pay, because I'm just reusing the money that I earn.
Yes.
So it really does, it's not a scam. If it's a reputable bank, you do
Yeah.
research. Or in the loyalty programs out there, like I know Fry's has I don't go to Fry's, it's a little bit out of my way, but I've heard that Fry's, the grocery gas program is really good, and I think that's credit card related. So you gotta be in some kind of a program right now, because they're giving away money.
Yeah. Fry's, it's not credit card related.
No.
It's just you have to have a valid phone number. Maybe not even valid.
You don't even need a phone number.
Technically-
You just got like 70 cents off. You just bring down.
Technically, I still use my parents' phone number from like 6 houses ago, when they had a landline for Kroger. But the only addendum I'll add on to that is if you have trouble with debt, be careful with credit cards.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, they can be great to give you a few extra dollars here and there. Nice, well, let's close out with a prayer. Let's get the other accountant up here to say a prayer.
Let's go bow our heads. Father God, you're just an awesome God. You just love us so much. You just allowed us to live in a place that's beautiful like Flagstaff, regardless of the wind. It's just amazing to know that we just have a God who just really cares so much for us, that you want us to live in a great and righteous way, and that even includes finances. That's one of the biggest struggles I know that people everywhere has, understanding it, figuring it out. And, it's so sad to see that people even claim that, money is evil and everything like that. And yet, it's like for the love of money is evil.
Yeah.
You've just given us the opportunity to be able to have, something that we can use to glorify you. That I think that's one thing that we can just view it as money, and just not view it as evil, but view it as something that you've given us so that we can glorify you, so that we can, glorify you through our, living below budget, living below our means, and also just giving back to you, and just really doing so many things, God. And I pray and ask that you just give us guidance in being able to, set up budgets, being able to have the, inward convictions to start giving to you, maybe through finances or maybe through other areas, so that we can really just see how you will use those blessings to glorify you. I mean, I think that's one of the most exciting things to think about, is to be able to see how, us, trying to do better in our finances will just do some amazing things. I mean, like, just listen to what Bruce and Rachel did through their lives. They're able to help out with, single mothers, with, the poor. And, I know it's on our hearts to really want to serve and glorify that. And for, to start off, we need to work on ourselves, God. We have to work on our, on how we treat the blessings you give us, God. So please give us the heart to do that. Please give us the heart to really just desire just to glorify you in everything that we have. And God, I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Enjoy your evening. Good luck on your budget.
I do not. But that's since 2014.
Yeah.
But it's week by week basis. For-
Oh, here it is.